Hello ladies and gentlemen, Daddo here. Welcome to another episode of Extended Range Guitars. This is part 2. Enjoy. Today I'm going to talk about how to extend your guitar sound, regardless if you play 6-string guitar, 7-string guitar, or 8-string guitar, or if you play 4-string bass as well. So what do I mean by this? Okay, I'm going to give you an example. Let's say you have 6-string guitar. You play it for a while. You use normal tuning. You write your own music, or you don't, doesn't matter. But in any case, you want something new. You want fresh perspective, perhaps. So what can you do with an instrument you already have? Here's an answer. When I talk about extended range on the guitar, I'm relating to anything outside of normal guitar tuning from E to E. So technically, if you tune down your low E string to D, for example, you have extended your lower guitar range for one whole step down. So drop D is one of the first things you can do on your 6-string guitar without any instrument modifications or string change. Well, here's an example. Drop D is really nothing new. It is not originated in a popular music of our time, believe it or not. Many classical guitar composers used it over 100 years ago or so. Here's an example. And let's get back to our electric guitar. Well, string gauge is a very important thing here. I normally use 946 on my 6-string. However, if you want the thicker sound when you're experimenting with different lower tunings, I recommend 1149 because thicker strings have more volume and sustain, and they are louder and have more energy. But again, it's just a recommendation. It's totally up to you, of course. You can go even deeper and extend your lowest string 2 whole steps down to C. Drop C tuning also has a couple of variations. For example, you can tune your A string down to G and tune your other strings down to C, F, A, and D. We are getting closer to a 7-string realm here, guys. Woohoo! Speaking of which, what would be the cheapest option to check out a 7-string tuning without buying a 7-string guitar? The solution is to tune your 6-string to very popular baritone tuning. This is what I mean. Ditch the high E string, get rid of it completely, and shift all other strings down. So in the empty slot, you will add low B string with an appropriate string gauge. Here's a recommendation how to pick a string set for your extended range guitar experiment. You can buy a 7-string set, ditch the high E string, and use the rest of the set. Or some string manufacturers produce baritone string sets with 0.62 for the lowest string, which gives you even more punch and sustain. And you can tune your G string down to F sharp, so you can play a B chord. I've seen many baritone players who love the sound of it. And I will play some examples for you right now. I will play a riff on normal tuning and the baritone tuning. Here we go. With next option, you can have an 8-string rhythm sound on the 6-string guitar. This is how you do it. Simply ditch the high B string, get rid of it completely, and shift all other strings down, and add low F sharp string with an appropriate gauge. Zoom. There you go. For this experiment, simply buy an 8-string guitar string set and get rid of the highest 2 strings. There are 2 options here. You can go with 9s or 10s, whatever you're comfortable with. It's up to you. And you will need to set up guitar truss rod and action accordingly. One of the cons with the 7-string is that you have to get used to an additional string, but advantage is that you can keep all your lead ability unchanged and keep all your favorite scale positions without any tonal range sacrifice. And I can rock with the lower B string and play all my previous licks on the same instrument. Here we have a normal factory tuning of a 7-string guitar, so right now I'm going to show you how to get a low-end 8-string guitar sound on the 7-string guitar. Ditch the high E string, remove it completely and shift all other strings down. In an empty slot, install low F sharp string. And let's go back to original 7-string tuning. Another option, if you have 26.5 scale length guitar or less than that, would be to go other way around. Ditch the low B string, remove it completely and shift all other strings up and add a high A string. Again, you need 26.5 scale length guitar or less for high A string. If you want to know more in detail about the A-string guitar, you can see my video Extended Range Guitars Part 1, 8-string. I will do a quick review right now and add 2 new tuning options. In Part 1 I mentioned I'm using the high A tuning on my 8-string. Well, I removed low F sharp string, shifted all strings down and added 007 high A string. Well, I came up with a very cool tuning by lowering low B string down to A. This is really cool, so check this out. And let's get back to usual A-string tuning with a low F sharp. So how to get a low end of a 9-string guitar on the 8-string guitar? Easy. Remove high E string and shift all the strings down and add an extra lower string. What tone, you ask? Well, let's try low C sharp. quick note, it's simply too muddy to play power chords here. For bass players, same rule applies, shifting strings up and down. Let's say you have a 4-string bass and you would like to have 5-string bass sound, but you don't want to buy a new instrument. How to do it? Well, very easy. I have 5-string bass here, but let's magically cut the lowest string and convert it into 4-string bass. Zoom. And this is normal 4-string bass tuning. E, A, D, and G. So how you make it sound like a 5-string bass? Easy. Ditch the high G string and completely remove it. Shift all the strings down and add low B string. Simple as that. But what if you have the 5-string bass and you want to keep the tuning of the high strings? Let's magically add one extra string to this bass. Zoom. And technically there are strings lower than a low B out there, but it's up to you to decide if you want to go with this path and what string gauge and tone to choose. But anyways, if you ditch the lowest string in this case and shift all the strings up, and by adding a G string, you have a normal 5-string bass tuning here. In case you have Floyd Rose system, it will be really difficult to make any on-the-fly tunings because when you tune down one string, as you can hear, the other strings go out of tune. Able to experiment with different tunings, you must install a Floyd Rose stopper. Or, if you don't have time to order one or go to your local music shop, simply apply this funny method. I received lots of questions on my YouTube channel about this high A string. Well, here are some tips how to make this high A tuning possible. First of all, make sure your guitar has 26.5 scale length or lower. Otherwise, string will break on anything higher than 26.5. You can also try high G instead of the high A if you have 27 and above. Or you can try tuning your guitar down half step. Some people reported this actually works. And you will probably ask, how the heck I measure my guitar's scale length? Well, it's simple. Just measure roughly between the edge of the nut and the string contact point on the bridge saddle. One of the questions I received on my YouTube channel is, what would be an ideal scale length for the high A string? If you can invest in a custom-made guitar, I suggest use of a multi-scale neck, as you can see on this draft here. Lower scale length, such as 24.5, is more lead-friendly on the higher strings, and 28 or any other combination will work for punchy sound on the lower strings. With 24.5 scale length on the high A string, it will be possible not only to maintain this tuning without string breakage, it will be possible to bend that string as well. Another very important tip, do not use old 007 strings. Believe it or not, most of the time I can bend the string on 26.5 scale length if I use fresh strings. To make sure the strings are fresh, I ordered the single strings in a pack of 10. This pack is vacuum sealed and that guarantees that string will stay fresh until I open the pack. After I open it, I simply place the pack in vacuum sealed freezer bag. This will keep the strings fresh for a while even after you open the pack. Very important. And another question was, I got 26.5-inch scale length guitar and every time I try to tune up to high A, my string pops out immediately. What's the trick? Okay, so make sure you tune the string to G first, okay? So leave it like that as long as you can, an hour at least, 2, 3, and then tune it to G sharp, slowly, really slowly, with gradual movements, okay? And do the same thing again until you reach the high A. That's the trick. Reason for this is that the string needs to adapt to this extra tension. So don't forget that this string is optimized for the tone E, and you are pushing its boundaries by adding some extra weight to it. That's the secret. And last but not least, after checking out different tunings, and let's say you want to keep the one you like, it is mandatory that you adjust a truss rod and string intonation accordingly. If you're using just a drop D, you will be fine, but let's say you want to use baritone tuning or 8-string tuning on a 6-string guitar. In that case, I definitely recommend truss rod and intonation adjustment. If you don't know how to do it or you're not sure how to do it, your best bet is to take it to a local music store and let an expert do it for you. If you're a 4-string bass player and you want to get a 5-string bass tuning with the low B, I definitely recommend a professional to do it because beside truss rod and intonation adjustment, this change requires some additional string saddle and nut modifications. My dear ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching this video. I really appreciate your time and your patience. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to post them, okay? Or if you want to contact me personally via social networks, feel free to do it as well. By the way, if you have any ideas for the 3rd episode, I'm open to any input of yours, okay? And remember, sky is the limit. There are no rules, and don't be afraid to experiment. Peace.